I'm going to allow each of you, well, I'm going to take that as a closing for Mr. Beauchamp. Mr. Bowers and Gosar, any final comment?
May I appeal to my age, my advanced age? Folks, how many of you have served in a war? I mean, in combat. I can't think of anything more difficult for any person to think of than to start a war. Demagoguery is absolutely dangerous. We all have to be very, very thoughtful and careful as we solve this problem. I'm not talking about felons. I'm not talking about the illegal. I'm talking about numbers. I'm talking about exacerbating my fears, the fears of my neighbors, into something that can get away from us. We have to be very, very thoughtful. It's like talking to my kids. He said, she said, you know, you see this escalation. We have to be very, very careful. And in Mexico, there's a saying, el buen juez de su casa empieza. The good judge starts at his own home. And we need to make sure we are thoughtfully restructuring our lifestyle and our presence before we want to take some rash actions.
And just very quickly, I'll throw one statistic out to you. One of my very good friends is the director of nursing of a private prison in Florence, Arizona. Over half of the population in her prison are illegal immigrants, and her prison is 100% sex offenders.
Mr. Gosar, final comment here.
I'm kind of dumbfounded. And I guess in the standpoint is this isn't a simple solution. It just really isn't a simple solution. If you're going to say that you're going to take people that are out of work and say, go get that work, show me. Show me that way that you're going to take people in Louisiana and put them to work. Please show me. Seriously, I want you to show me. I want to see the hand in the audience that shows me that people who have been on welfare are going to go out in those fields, cut lettuce or cut spinach. Please tell me.
Okay, we're going to...
No, I'm not.
We're going to wrap this up and go to... Here's another question. Let's see, who are we up? That's our fourth question. I think we're back to Mr. Bowers. Will you back Israel in general, and in particular in dealing with Iran and other Middle East terrorist nations?
Iran. There was a prime minister named Mossadegh who was a communist. And a little young man named Kermit Roosevelt, the son of Teddy Roosevelt, working for the CIA, overthrew Mossadegh and installed the Pahlavi Shah of Iran. From that time on, we had an ally in Iran until the overthrow by the Khomeinis in the Iranian Revolution. Right now, there are two great forces in that region that are extremely dangerous. One is holding and containing Iran. And believe it or not, the French have been helpful of late. Making sure, because the signals we're sending, that this administration is sending to Israel, are vacillative. They are not sure. We're trying to play both sides of this fence, and we cannot play with this ball. There must be no question in Ahmadinejad's mind that he risks his existence by playing with this ball. Now, right across the border to the east is Pakistan. Pakistan with Afghanistan, cradled between the two. Pakistan, as you know, formed, 14 August 1947 by the partition. Lord Mountbatten from Britain oversaw the partition. Pakistan, also nuclear powered, also has a region of lawlessness. And with those two cradling Afghanistan, which can move west and east with its problems, I'm being professorial. But we need to be very careful, but very, very strong with Israel.
Okay, Mr. Beauchamp.
On their side.
I got confused at the end. Yes, to answer the question, I do support Israel over Iran. The simple reason is you're dealing with a group of people who know what it's like to actually be systematically exterminated from the face of the earth. So they're going to be a little touchy when somebody in another country says, I'm going to wipe you off the face of the earth. And the Israelis have every right to be concerned because they are in an unenviable position. They are surrounded by people who hate them. They don't like their Jewish faith. They don't like the fact that they're in the Middle East. And they want them out. And they've been trying to get them out for 40, 50, 60 years. And they can't get them out. And so, yes, you support Israel because the last time I checked, Israel doesn't fly planes into skyscrapers in New York.
Mr. Gosar, will you back Israel in general, and in particular dealing with Iran and other terrorist nations?
I would hope we never get to that point where we're having to back Israel. I hope the League of Nations, and I hope this country takes that first attempt. Israel has been a great ally of ours. But what you risk when you have Israel take that shot is you risk the holy war. If you remember back in the early 60s, Golda Meir made the comment, there'll be no peace in Israel until Palestinian women love their children more than they hate Israel. There's more to this story. You've got to be very, very careful and very timid.
Golda Meir also said, the person who says turn the other cheek has never been slapped. And we have to get right back to Israel is our listening post. They are our ally. They are the prime securing nation and state and apparatus for information and intelligence. We need them there. They provide a securing location in the entire region, not just in that central region, but in the Horn of Africa, clear up through southern Europe and the Balkans, and into Georgia, etc., in the lower, formerly Soviet states.
Mr. Beauchamp.
And just to correct something that Mr. Gosar indicated that was erroneous, we actually don't have a League of Nations. That didn't pass after World War I. We have a United Nations. And the United Nations consists of the United States, partially the British, and a handful of other countries around the world that send nominal amounts and nominal troops to whatever problem we have in the world. The United States, we are pretty much the United Nations. We fund the United Nations. When the UN does a resolution to send troops, we send troops. Not the other members of the United Nations, certainly not in the volume that we send. So I think relying on the United Nations is dangerous because it's the United Nations who also would like to see your Second Amendment rights taken away. And I don't want to give them any more power than they think they already have.
You know, I'm not advocating a League of Nations. It's just a number of nations coming together, like France, England, whatever. They can belong to the United Nations for whatever you care. But it takes multitasking. Because just like we talked about before, in the Korean War we have China. You look at the way China's worked with North Korea. Come on, folks, it takes more than this than just to push a button. And so you need all skills, not just our skills. But I hope it's all skills.
All right, I think we're starting with Mr. Beauchamp. What would you consider the better strategy to beat Ann Kirkpatrick? Radical right-wing campaign or a more moderate approach?
I think the approach is you vote for who the person is. And conservatism fuels the nation. So it's the right-wing approach. When you call it a right-wing approach, I call it a conservative approach. It's the responsible approach. It's the approach that says don't spend more than you have. It's the approach that says less government is more beneficial to the people than more government. That's what the Founding Fathers intended. That's why the Constitution is drafted the way that it is. That's why it has the Bill of Rights included. The way to beat Miss Kirkpatrick is simply to point out to Miss Kirkpatrick is that you have not been very truthful with the people, that you have voted for legislation that bankrupts us. You have voted for a stimulus, an omnibus, a budget. You voted for a health care bill. She voted no on cap and trade, but that's because they let her out of the vote. How do I know? She took money from Henry Waxman. He authored the bill. Who pays somebody money after they vote no for their pet project unless they let them out of the legislation? Ann Kirkpatrick is the embodiment of the irresponsible